What's the point talking to people anyway? I can't tell you. I can't tell anyone. I don't want to bother them. No one's ever going to believe me. These are some of the thoughts that we can have that prevent us from speaking out right when we need it most. I'm Sinead Welsh, and I'm on a mission to destigmatise mental health and normalise the conversations around it, one story at a time. And that's because I'm a social work specialist. I have a professional interest in this, seeking to understand the power of talking out instead of suffering in silence. In my work in digital health, Ryan attended my office, and I'd like to tell you about Ryan. At age 21, a first-year student at university, Ryan was proud. He lived a great life. They partied hard, as he said most students do. They laughed often, and Ryan even managed to attend most of his lectures and pass his first 2 years of study. Anyone looking objectively would have observed Ryan as a strong, tall, very vocal, confident young man, because that's how he wanted to be seen by his peers, friends, and academics. What you see with Ryan is you see him standing at the bar with a cool, fresh pint in hand, laughing and joking with his friends, having a great time. But that's what you see. Behind closed doors, there's a real sense of sadness, a sense of loneliness, and thoughts of suicide. Ryan attended my office 2 years later as part of my work in understanding the power of talking and telling stories. He's sitting on my black leather seat with a warm mug of coffee in hand when he starts to tell me the truth of how he never wanted to speak to anyone about how he was feeling back at university. I can tell you that the perfect picture that Ryan portrayed so convincingly for so long was not the real Ryan at all. Ryan attended my office when he was brave, confident, and capable to tell me the story. Ryan spoke about the drinking. It started out with that cool, refreshing pint after a hard day at university, and somehow escalated into drinking every single day. It escalated to violence and depressive hangovers. The £5 bet on a Saturday gave Ryan the buzz initially. How did it turn out? How did it form that he was betting on every single horse, running on every single Saturday? The money was gone. The guilt was in. Ryan knew he was wearing the perfect mask. No one had a clue. Ryan spoke of that night at university when he fell to his knees alone in the cold, dark university bedroom, crying uncontrollably when he realised he just had to get out of there. So that night, Ryan made the long journey home. Ryan did not want to die. He did not want to live the life he had. Have you ever reached a low point in your life? Have you ever reached for the ice cream or the chocolate? Have you ever reached for that bottle of wine or whiskey? Or maybe it's the cannabis or the lines of cocaine. You know, a lot of things we do in life is to try to make ourselves feel better. But can you imagine if we and those we loved reached out to speak to someone instead of reaching for those unhealthy and even dangerous ways to cope? What was the point in Ryan talking to me anyway? Well, he said he found a sense of relief. In his own words, it was almost therapeutic to get it all out. And Ryan talked while I listened, and I recorded his story. We wanted to record his story and those like it in our app so that we could be a beacon of hope for others. Ryan spoke the truth. And we know the truth resonates. So what helped Ryan? Ryan spoke to his mother, and then he spoke to his father individually. Unfortunately, that's not everyone's case. Not everyone can speak to their parents. What was the point speaking to his parents? For Ryan, they listened to him, they believed him, they did not judge him, and they did not tell him what to do next. Those initial conversations were actually the powerful turning point for Ryan towards an improved mental health. Next, instead of texting his friends, Ryan spoke to them face to face. When it became apparent they had no clue whatsoever how Ryan had been feeling for so long, all those years at university. And Ryan was right. Unless we talk about it, how could anybody know? Seeking help from loved ones or professionals is not weak. It's the way to win. And I'll go even further. Could sharing our real stories offer some light and hope to others struggling? Experts call this see, feel, change. An approach fueled by action, by sparking emotion, via the powerful storytelling. Would you believe it if I told you that the most compelling element of telling stories is the brilliant fact? They're less polished, less structured, and less formal, which in turn makes them more attractive, more relatable, and more engaging for the listener. So yes, I believe sharing our stories has the power to influence and support others. So I'll ask you, do you have a story to share? Every single one of us do. And I'd like to tell you about how, as a social work specialist and a mental health advocate, I got something so wrong. You see, my initial instinct is to jump to fix people. I cannot fix anyone. It's not my job to fix anyone. I can only work on me. And I've learned that my role and my purpose is to just be there and just listen to people. It was a gorgeous Saturday morning, and I had had the best week ever. And I'm off out to celebrate to my favourite Indian restaurant. I'm in the car with my favourite Meghan Trainor song blaring, when suddenly I go from a genuine state of happiness to a state of sadness, shock, and confusion. You see, I got a phone call from Jack. Jack is my best friend Jill's husband. Jack is a solid 6 foot tall, strong, confident man. And he's crying profusely down the phone. I can hardly make out one word he is saying. In between the irregularly fast breaths, I hear Jack say, "Jill has attempted suicide." Is she dead? Is she in hospital? Is she okay? Where are the children? All of these thoughts are frantically spiraling around in my head. Thankfully, Jill is alive. Thankfully, she is safe. And Jill made the decision that she wanted to remain at home with Jack and the kids that night, with an agreement that she wouldn't harm herself and a safety plan in place. But that she wanted to see me the next morning. We know that the majority of people who feel suicidal do not want to die. They do not want to live the life they have, and they want their pain to end. What's the point speaking to professionals anyway? They're waiting to listen to you. Most of them are actually hard to shock because they've heard lots of things before. And they see you as the expert in you. And they want you to decide what's going to happen for you next. It's the morning after the dreaded call, and I'm on my way to Jill's house. It's pouring down with rain. It's freezing cold. And the sky is grey. I pull up on the street, and I walk to the front door. I knock it slowly, and Jill opens the door. I will always remember Jill's pink, fluffy nightgown tied at the waist, and I'll always remember the matching hot pink slippers. But I will never forget Jill's face. Her eyes told me that she was in a desperate state of despair. I opened up my arms as wide as I could, and Jill hugged me. One of the most tight embraces of our lives. And I whispered into her ears, "I love you." 4 hours later, and a lot of tea and a lot of tears, I applied the best advice I'd been given by adapting my favourite poem by Rolf Broughton, MD, on listening. Just be there, Sinead. Just listen. Let there be silences. Listen to her. Do not talk. For when you do something for Jill that she can do for herself, you contribute to her fear and inadequacies. But when you accept as a simple fact that she feels how she feels, no matter how irrational, Jill can quit trying to convince you and get about the business of trying to understand what's behind this irrational feeling. And when that's clear, the answers are obvious to Jill, and she does not need advice. So please, do not try to fix her. Just be there and just hear her. So to conclude, what's the point talking to people anyway? Well, the responses you get might just shock you, as most people genuinely care. If you are listened to, if you are believed, and if you're allowed the space to make your own decisions about moving forward, this can liberate you towards regaining some control. And the one thing I remember from my childhood during my research and work was by BT. It's good to talk. What's your story? And who could benefit from you sharing it? Thank you.